The autumn breeze carried a crisp scent of possibilities through Central Park as 32-year-old Emma Sinclair collapsed onto a bench, her waitressing uniform still reeking of the morning's coffee spill. 3 consecutive shifts. 2 rude customers, and 1 caffeine-deprived manager later, she was exhausted but $215 richer in tips. Not bad for a Thursday, but barely enough to make a dent in her overdue rent. "Just once," she muttered to the pigeons gathering hopefully at her feet. "I'd like to sit on a park bench because I want to, not because my feet are staging a mutiny." The birds cooed sympathetically, their feathery audience more attentive than her last 3 Tinder dates combined. Emma stretched her legs, wincing at the familiar ache in her calves. Her gaze drifted to the golden leaves swirling around her, worn-out sneakers when something caught her eye. A sleek black leather object wedged against the bench leg. A wallet. And not just any wallet. This was the kind of wallet that had never seen the inside of a discount store. "Hello, beautiful," she whispered, picking it up. The leather was butter soft, the craftsmanship exquisite. Monogrammed in gold, on the corner were the initials AH. Emma glanced around. The nearest people were a young couple taking selfies by the fountain and an elderly man feeding squirrels. No one frantically patting pockets or retracing steps. She opened it, looking for identification. Her eyes widened. Inside was not only a driver's license for Alexander Harrington, but also several credit cards, business cards identifying him as the CEO of Harrington Enterprises, and, Emma's breath caught, nearly $3,000 in cash. $3,000, she breathed. That was rent, that was groceries, that was her sister's medical bills. For exactly 7 seconds, Emma allowed herself to imagine keeping it. 7 seconds of financial breathing room. 7 seconds of not counting pennies. Then she shook her head. "Get it together, Sinclair," she scolded herself. "Your moral compass isn't for sale." She examined the driver's license more closely. Alexander Harrington looked like he'd stepped out of a men's fashion magazine. Dark hair perfectly styled, jawline that could cut glass, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed enhanced. Even in his DMV photo, he looked like he owned the place. "Must be nice," Emma muttered, pulling out her ancient flip phone. Her friends called it vintage to be kind, and dialing the number on his business card. "Harrington Enterprises, how may I direct your call?" answered a crisp, professional voice. "Hi, I found Alexander Harrington's wallet in Central Park. I'd like to return it to him." A pause. "Mr. Harrington is in meetings all day. May I take your information instead?" Emma hesitated. Handing over something with this much cash to an unknown assistant seemed risky. "Actually, I'd prefer to return it directly to him. It contains personal items." Another pause. "1 moment, please." 30 seconds later, a deep, commanding voice came on the line. "This is Alexander Harrington. You found my wallet?" Something about his tone, entitled impatient, made Emma's spine straighten. "Yes, at the Cherry Hill Fountain in Central Park. All your cash and cards seem to be intact." "Of course they are," he replied, as if the very suggestion was absurd. "Where can my driver pick it up?" Emma frowned. "Not even a thank you? Actually, I work near Central Park. I could drop it at your office if that's convenient." "Fine. Harrington Tower, penthouse office. Security will expect you." He hung up. Emma stared at her phone. "Nice talking to you too, Your Majesty," she muttered. She stood, tucking the wallet into her purse. It was her only day off this week, and now she'd be spending it delivering lost property to an entitled billionaire who couldn't be bothered to say thank you. But her mother had raised her right, and besides, Emma had always believed in karma. What she didn't believe in, however, was that the universe had any special plans for her and Alexander Harrington to cross paths beyond this one-time wallet return. Their worlds couldn't be further apart. The sleek, gleaming tower of Harrington Enterprises loomed ahead as Emma approached, feeling increasingly underdressed in her faded jeans and vintage band t-shirt. Glass and steel stretched toward the sky, reflecting clouds and success in equal measure. As she pushed through the revolving doors into the marble-floored lobby, Emma couldn't help but think that this brief intersection of their lives would make for a funny story later, the day she met a billionaire and he couldn't even say thank you. She had no idea that Alexander Harrington was about to turn her carefully balanced world completely upside down. Found in Fortune Chapter 2, The Penthouse Meeting, the elevator ride to the penthouse level of Harrington Tower felt like ascending to Mount Olympus, if Mount Olympus had been decorated by a minimalist with an unlimited budget. Emma fought the urge to check her reflection in the mirrored walls again. Her wild auburn curls refused to be tamed by the quick brushing she'd given them in the lobby bathroom, and her freckles stood out against her pale skin, a testament to her Irish heritage and too many hours indoors working. "Floor 78, penthouse," announced a pleasant computerized voice as the elevator doors slid open silently. Emma stepped into a reception area where everything seemed to be either white, glass, or chrome. A sleek blonde receptionist, with perfect posture, looked up from behind a desk that appeared to be carved from a single block of marble. "May I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting that assistance was unlikely. "I'm Emma Sinclair. I found Mr. Harrington's wallet. He's expecting me." The receptionist's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch. "Ah, yes. One moment." She pressed a button on her earpiece. "Sir, the wallet person is here." Pause. "Yes, sir." She gestured to a set of imposing double doors. "Mr. Harrington will see you now." "Thanks," Emma murmured, suddenly feeling like she was entering the dragon's lair. The office beyond was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of Manhattan that took Emma's breath away. For a moment, she forgot why she was there, moving toward the windows like a moth to flame. "Beautiful, isn't it?" came a voice from behind her. "Though I rarely notice anymore." Emma turned. Alexander Harrington was even more impressive in person than his driver's license photo suggested. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore a charcoal suit that Emma suspected cost more than her annual rent. His dark hair had that perfect dishevelment that took expensive products to achieve, and those blue eyes were indeed that vibrant. "That's the saddest thing I've heard all day," Emma replied before she could stop herself. Having this view and not seeing it anymore. A flicker of surprise crossed his face before his expression returned to polite indifference. "My wallet?" "Right." Emma reached into her bag and extracted the expensive leather item. "Everything should be there. Cards, cash, your Platinum Club membership, too." She squinted at the card. "Elysium? Is that a gym or a cult?" A corner of his mouth twitched. "Both, depending on who you ask." She handed him the wallet, their fingers brushing briefly. Alexander opened it, quickly checking the contents. "Impressive," he said, pulling out the cash and extending it toward her. "Most people would have kept this. Consider it a reward." Emma stepped back as if he'd offered her a snake. "I don't want your money, Mr. Harrington." "Everyone wants money." "I want to earn mine, thanks." Emma folded her arms. "A simple thank you would suffice." Alexander stared at her as if she were a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. He returned the cash to his wallet and set it on his desk. "Thank you, Ms. Sinclair, Emma Sinclair. Ms. Sinclair." He glanced at his watch, a subtle dismissal. "My assistant will see you out." Emma felt a flash of irritation. "Wow, they really nailed the genuine human connection programming in your model." His eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "Nothing," Emma said, turning to leave. "Enjoy your view, Mr. Harrington. Maybe try looking at it sometimes." She was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her. "Wait." Emma turned, one eyebrow raised. Alexander studied her with newfound curiosity. You're the first person who's told me no all week. It's refreshing. You need better company." "Apparently so." He walked around his desk, leaning against it with casual elegance. "Have dinner with me." Emma blinked. "What?" "Dinner. It's a meal people typically eat in the evening." "I know what dinner is," Emma replied, fighting a smile. "I'm just wondering if you hit your head when you lost your wallet. I don't date my employees, my competitors, or women who pursue me for my money," he said, as if explaining a simple concept. "You're none of those things, and you've just refused $3,000 on principle. I find that interesting. I'm a human being, not a curiosity exhibit. Precisely why I'd like to have dinner with you." A genuine smile transformed his face, revealing a dimple in his left cheek that his serious expressions had hidden. "1. Meal. If you find me insufferable, you never have to see me again." Emma should have said no. This man lived in a different universe, one where people had penthouses and private cars and didn't check their bank balance before buying coffee. But something in his eyes, a fleeting vulnerability beneath the confidence, made her hesitate. "I'm working tonight," she said finally. "I'm a waitress at the Morning Brew on 53rd. "Tomorrow, then." Emma bit her lip. "I can't afford the kinds of restaurants you go to." "My invitation, my expense," he countered. "But you choose the place. Somewhere you'd actually enjoy." The elevator dinged, behind her. Alexander's assistant appeared, clearly sent to escort her out. "Fine," Emma said impulsively. "One dinner, but I'm not dressing up, and if you're more than 10 minutes late, I'm leaving." Alexander smiled, a genuine one this time, that reached his eyes. "I haven't been late to anything since 2010, Ms. Sinclair." "Emma," she corrected him. "If you're buying me dinner, you should use my first name." "Emma," he repeated, as if testing how it felt on his tongue. "Tomorrow at 7. Text me the address." He held out a business card. She took it, their fingers brushing again. "Don't forget your wallet this time, Alexander." As the elevator descended, Emma leaned against the wall, her heart racing. What had she just agreed to? A date with a billionaire who probably thought a food truck was something that delivered groceries to his penthouse? This was either going to be the best story she ever told her friends, or the most awkward evening of her life. What she didn't notice was Alexander watching her departure on the security monitor, an unfamiliar smile lingering on his lips as he absent-mindedly touched the wallet she'd returned. The wallet he'd deliberately left on that park bench after noticing the beautiful redhead who sat there every Thursday at the same time. Emma had agonized over where to take Alexander Harrington for dinner. A fast food joint would be too obviously antagonistic, and anywhere fancy would feel like she was trying to fit into his world. After much deliberation, she'd settled on Gino's, a family-owned Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street in her neighborhood. The food was exceptional, the atmosphere unpretentious, and the owners treated her like family. As she waited outside, dressed in her nicest jeans and an emerald blouse that brought out the green in her hazel eyes, Emma checked her watch. 6:58 p.m. She'd half expected him to cancel. At precisely 7:01, a sleek black Bentley pulled up to the curb. Alexander emerged, having swapped his business suit for dark jeans and a navy cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. He looked jarringly normal and annoyingly handsome. "Right on time," Emma noted. "I'm impressed." As I mentioned, punctuality is a virtue I hold dear. His eyes traveled over her appraisingly. "You look lovely." Emma felt her cheeks warm. "Thanks. This place doesn't have a dress code, but they do have the best margarita pizza in New York." Alexander glanced at the modest storefront with its checkered curtains and neon Gino's sign. If he was disappointed, he didn't show it. "Lead the way." The restaurant was busy, filled with the hum of conversation and the rich aromas of garlic and tomato sauce. The owner, Gino himself, spotted Emma and enveloped her in a bear hug. Emma Bella. And who is this handsome man? Finally a boyfriend. Just a friend, Gino, Emma corrected, her blush deepening. This is Alexander. Gino shook Alexander's hand enthusiastically. Any friend of Emma's is welcome here. Come, I have your special table. He led them to a booth near the back. Underneath, a mural of the Amalfi Coast. A candle flickered between them as they sat, casting a warm glow. The special table? Alexander asked after Gino left. I helped his daughter with college applications, Emma explained. She got into Columbia with a scholarship. They've been feeding me ever since. You're a college admissions counselor? English teacher, actually, at the community center. I help with college essays on the side. Alexander's eyebrows rose. Yet you work as a waitress? The community center can only afford part-time positions, Emma shrugged. Hence, the coffee-slinging glamour job. Before Alexander could respond, Gino returned with a bottle of wine. On the house, he insisted, pouring 2 glasses before disappearing again. Emma raised her glass. To returned wallets and unexpected dinners. Alexander clinked his glass against hers. To honesty and surprises. As they sipped, an awkward silence descended. Emma fidgeted with her napkin. Dating had never been her strong suit, and whatever this was felt even more complicated. So, they both said simultaneously, then laughed. Ladies first, Alexander offered. Ever played 2 truths and a lie? Emma suggested. Quick way to get past small talk. A smile tugged at Alexander's lips. Intriguing. You start. Emma took another sip of wine. Okay. I once won a hot dog eating contest. I have a twin sister. And I'm deathly afraid of butterflies. Alexander studied her, those blue eyes surprisingly perceptive. The hot dog contest is the lie. Wrong. I demolished 12 hot dogs in 10 minutes at a county fair. My sister Olivia is 2 years older, not my twin. Impressive stomach capacity, he chuckled. My turn. I've never been on a subway. I speak 5 languages. I once turned down a date with a famous actress because I had a conference call. The subway is the lie, Emma guessed. Even you couldn't be that sheltered. I'm afraid I am. Born and raised in Manhattan with private drivers. I've been in helicopter taxis but never underground transportation. Emma's jaw dropped. That's almost un-American. The subway is a quintessential New York experience. So I've been told. We should fix that. After dinner. The suggestion tumbled out before Emma could reconsider. Alexander looked genuinely startled. Tonight? No time like the present, Emma challenged. Unless you're scared of public transportation? Their pizza arrived. Half margarita, half with prosciutto and arugula, momentarily pausing their conversation. Emma watched as Alexander took his first bite, suppressing a smile at his surprised expression. This is exceptional, he admitted. Better than the pizza I had in Naples last month. Told you. Emma savored her own slice. So, billionaire CEO, do you actually enjoy it? The meetings, the responsibility, She waved her hand. General, billionairing? Alexander wiped his mouth with a napkin, considering. Parts of it. The innovation, the problem-solving, creating something from nothing. He paused. The endless board meetings and social obligations, less so. What would you do if you weren't Alexander Harrington, CEO? The question seemed to catch him off guard. I've never considered an alternative. Never. Not even as a kid. I was groomed for this position since birth, he said simply. The company has been in my family for 3 generations. Emma's heart unexpectedly ached for him. That sounds predetermined. It's reality. His tone was matter of fact, but something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. What about you? Did you always dream of juggling teaching and waitressing? Touché, Emma laughed. I wanted to be a writer, actually. Still do. I'm working on a novel, but between jobs, there's not much time. What's it about? A dystopian future where people are sorted into social classes based on their social media presence. Sounds disturbingly plausible. As they continued eating, their conversation flowed more naturally. Emma learned that despite his privileged upbringing, Alexander had a dry, self-deprecating wit. He discovered that beneath her quick retorts, Emma possessed a compassionate heart and formidable intelligence. By the time they'd finished dessert, tiramisu that made Alexander close his eyes in appreciation, Emma felt a dangerous warmth spreading through her chest. This was not going according to plan. She was supposed to confirm he was an entitled jerk and move on with her life, not enjoy his company. "Ready for your first subway adventure?" she asked as they exited the restaurant. Alexander looked at the Bentley where his driver waited. "Rain check? I have an early meeting tomorrow in Boston." Disappointment pricked at Emma, sharper than it should have been for someone she barely knew. "Sure, no problem. But I'd like to see you again," he added quickly. "Perhaps you could help me experience another New York tradition I've missed." Emma hesitated. The sensible part of her brain warned that getting involved with someone from his world was asking for heartbreak. But something about the way he looked at her, like she was a fascinating puzzle he wanted to solve, made her nod. "Deal. But next time, I'm planning the whole evening, and it won't involve chauffeurs or expense accounts." Alexander's smile reached his eyes. "I look forward to it." He stepped closer, and for one heart-stopping moment, Emma thought he might kiss her. Instead, he took her hand and pressed his lips gently to her knuckles. An old-fashioned gesture that should have seemed ridiculous, but somehow wasn't. "Good night, Emma Sinclair." As his car pulled away, Emma stood on the sidewalk, her hand tingling where his lips had touched. This was bad. Very bad. She was starting to like a man who belonged to a different universe. What she didn't know was that as Alexander settled into the leather back seat, he was already canceling his Boston meeting. Alexander Harrington stood outside the Morning Brew Cafe, feeling oddly nervous. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with less anxiety than he felt waiting for a waitress to finish her shift. The cafe door swung open, and Emma emerged, looking surprised to see him. "Alexander, what are you doing here?" "I had a meeting nearby," he lied smoothly, ignoring the fact that his nearby meeting had actually been 20 blocks away and deliberately scheduled to end when her shift did. Emma raised an eyebrow skeptically. "In this neighborhood?" "Real estate opportunity," he said, which wasn't entirely false. His company had been exploring development options in up-and-coming areas. "Well, since you're here..." She glanced at her watch. "Ready for that subway experience I promised you?" Alexander nodded, trying to appear more enthusiastic than apprehensive. "Lead on." As they walked toward the nearest subway entrance, Emma noticed his perfectly polished shoes. "Those are going to get scuffed." "They're just shoes," says the man whose footwear probably costs more than my rent. He glanced down. "If it makes you feel better, I've had them for 3 years." "The fact that 3-year-old shoes look that pristine tells me everything I need to know about your life," Emma laughed. They descended into the subway station, Alexander trying not to touch the railings while Emma watched him with barely concealed amusement. "First rule of the subway," she instructed. "Don't make eye contact with anyone for too long." "Sounds like my board meetings," Alexander murmured, earning a genuine laugh from Emma that brightened her entire face. She purchased them Metro cards, waving away Alexander's attempt to pay. "My adventure, my treat. You can splurge on the hot dogs later." The platform was crowded with the evening rush. Business people heading home, students with backpacks, tourists consulting maps. Alexander stood stiffly, looking out of place despite his casual attire. "Relax," Emma whispered. "You look like you're waiting for someone to mug you." "Aren't I?" She rolled her eyes. This isn't the 1980s. Besides, I'll protect you. The train arrived with a rush of air and screeching brakes. Emma grabbed Alexander's hand and pulled him into the packed car before he could hesitate. They ended up standing close together, holding the same overhead rail as the train lurched forward. So this is how the other 99% live, Alexander said quietly, his breath warm against her ear in the cramped space. Welcome to reality, Mr. Harrington. Emma was intensely aware of his proximity, the subtle scent of his cologne, and the firm grip of his hand still holding hers. It's not terrible, he admitted, looking around. Though I question the ergonomics of the seating design. They're not designed for comfort. They're designed to hose down when necessary. Alexander grimaced, and Emma laughed again. At the next stop, more passengers crowded in, pushing them closer together. Alexander instinctively placed his free hand on the small of Emma's back to steady her, a gesture that sent an unexpected warmth up her spine. Sorry, he murmured. It's fine, she replied, her voice slightly higher than normal. They rode in silence for a few stops, the strange intimacy of being pressed together among strangers, making conversation difficult. When they finally emerged, at Coney Island, the setting sun cast a golden glow over the boardwalk. Phase 2 of Normal Person's New York, Emma announced. Coney Island hot dogs and the Wonder Wheel at sunset. Alexander looked at the crowded boardwalk, the rumbling roller coasters, and the flashing arcade lights with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. Is this too much? She asked, suddenly uncertain. We could do something else. No, Alexander said firmly. This is perfect. I haven't been here since I was very young. They joined the line at Nathan's Famous, where Emma insisted Alexander couldn't leave without trying the original hot dog. As they waited, a young woman behind them gasped in recognition. Oh my God, you're Alexander Harrington. Can I get a selfie? Emma watched as Alexander's face transformed into a polite mask, his public persona sliding into place as he graciously agreed. More people noticed, and soon several others approached for photos or handshakes. Does this happen often? Emma asked, when they finally had their hot dogs and escaped to a relatively quiet spot on the boardwalk. Often enough, he said, loosening slightly now that they were alone. It comes with the territory. The company's been in the news lately with the new clean energy initiative. Emma studied him. It must be exhausting. Always being recognized. Never just being a person eating a hot dog. Alexander took a bite, considered it seriously. Not bad. And yes, sometimes it is exhausting. But I've never known anything different. Hence tonight's adventure in anonymity, she guessed. Though, that clearly backfired. Not entirely. His eyes met hers. I'm still just a person eating a hot dog with you. The sincerity in his voice made something flutter in Emma's chest. To distract herself, she pointed to a spot of mustard on his chin. A person with condiments on his face. Alexander laughed, wiping it away with a napkin. See? Progress. They finished eating and walked toward the Wonder Wheel, its lights beginning to twinkle as dusk fell. The line moved slowly, giving them time to talk. Tell me something no one knows about you, Emma said impulsively. Alexander considered this. I can juggle. Prove it. He glanced around, spotted a vendor selling small foam souvenirs, and purchased 3 balls. To Emma's surprise, he proceeded to juggle them flawlessly. I'm impressed, she admitted. Where did a billionaire CEO learn to juggle? Boarding school. I was a lonely kid. Taught myself from a book. The simple confession revealed more about him than perhaps he intended. The privileged but isolated childhood, the self-sufficiency, the determination to master something just because he could. Your turn, he said, putting the foam balls in his pocket. Something no one knows about Emma Sinclair. She hesitated. I have a birthmark shaped exactly like Australia on my shoulder blade. Now that I don't believe. Emma laughed. It's true. My sister says it's why I've always wanted to go there. You've never been. She shook her head. Teaching and waitressing don't exactly fund international travel. They reached the front of the line, and Alexander paid for their tickets before Emma could object. My adventure too, he insisted. The operator seated them in one of the swinging cars, the kind that rocked back and forth as the wheel rotated. As they ascended, Emma clutched the safety bar. Don't tell me you're afraid of heights, Alexander said, noticing her white knuckles. Not heights, just swinging precariously in an ancient metal contraption hundreds of feet above concrete. Alexander surprised her by placing his hand over hers. I won't let anything happen to you. The gesture was so earnest, so protective, that Emma didn't have the heart to tease him about the impossibility of his promise. Instead, she turned her hand to intertwine their fingers, both of them pretending it was still about steadying her nerves. At the top of the wheel, their car paused, giving them a breathtaking view of the city lights coming alive against the darkening sky. The ocean stretched out before them, vast and mysterious in the twilight. Worth the terror? Alexander asked softly. Emma turned to him, about to make a joke, but the words died on her lips when she saw how he was looking at her. Like she was the view, not the glittering cityscape around them. Yes, she managed to whisper. Alexander leaned closer, his intentions clear. Emma's heart raced as she closed her eyes, feeling his breath on her lips. And then their car lurched as the wheel began moving again, sending them swinging wildly. Emma yelped, grabbing Alexander's arm and burying her face against his shoulder until the swinging subsided. When she dared look up, he was laughing, not the controlled chuckle she'd heard before, but a genuine, uninhibited laugh that transformed his face completely. I'm glad my terror amuses you, she grumbled, but she was smiling too. Not your terror, he clarified, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with unexpected tenderness. Just this, being here, with you. It's not how I expected this week to go. Me neither, Emma admitted. Finding your wallet was supposed to be a 5-minute good deed, not... She gestured vaguely between them. Not what? He prompted. Not whatever this is becoming, she said honestly. The wheel completed its rotation, bringing them back to the platform. As they exited, Alexander kept hold of her hand, a silent acknowledgement of her words. They walked along the boardwalk as night fully descended, the conversations and laughter around them creating a comfortable bubble of anonymity. What about a nightcap? Alexander suggested as they reached the end of the pier. There's a rooftop bar at... Actually, Emma interrupted. I was thinking we could grab some ice cream and take another subway ride. The Q train over the Manhattan Bridge has the best night view of the city. Alexander looked at her with something like wonder. Has anyone ever told you that you're extraordinary, Emma Sinclair? Not recently, she said lightly, though her cheeks warmed. Well, you are. He squeezed her hand. And a subway ice cream tour sounds perfect. As they headed back toward the station, Emma tried to ignore the voice in her head, warning her that this fairy tale had an expiration date. For tonight, she would enjoy the company of a man who could buy the entire subway system, but chose instead to experience it with her. What she didn't see was the notification lighting up Alexander's phone. An urgent message from his father, demanding his immediate return for an emergency board meeting that would test exactly where his priorities truly lay. You can't be serious, Alexander. Bartholomew Harrington's voice echoed through the cavernous boardroom. At 72, he remained an imposing figure, silver-haired, ramrod straight, with the same piercing blue eyes as his son, though lacking any of the warmth Alexander's had recently developed. Alexander maintained his composure, though his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The evidence is clear, Father. The Kazakhstan deal involves environmental violations and labor exploitation. I won't approve it. It's worth $2 billion. And how much is our integrity worth? Alexander countered, closing the file in front of him. The board agrees with me, 7-2. His father's face reddened. You've turned them against me. I've shown them the facts. Alexander stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. Now, if you'll... Excuse me, I have another appointment. That waitress again? Bartholomew sneered. Alexander froze. You had me followed? I had you protected. His father's tone shifted, becoming dangerously gentle. You're the face of Harrington Enterprises, Alexander. Your associations matter. My personal life is none of your concern. Everything about you is my concern. Bartholomew slammed his hand on the table. I built this empire. Everything you have, your education, your position, this building, I gave you. And I've tripled our market value in 5 years, Alexander replied evenly. I've earned my place. His father's expression hardened. Not if you continue this dalliance. The Reynolds girl has been asking about you. Caroline, Harvard Business School, family in banking. That's a suitable match. I'm not a 19th century aristocrat requiring an arranged marriage. No, you're the CEO of a multinational corporation with responsibilities. Bartholomew moved closer, lowering his voice. I've had Ms. Sinclair investigated. Alexander's blood ran cold. You did what? Community college education. Sister with medical debt. Mother in assisted living with Parkinson's. Father unknown. He shrugged. Classic gold digger profile. It took every ounce of Alexander's self-control not to react. You've crossed a line. I've protected our interests. The board votes on your continued leadership next month. Several members have expressed concern about your recent distractions. The threat was clear. Alexander maintained eye contact with his father, the man who had shaped him, driven him, and was now attempting to control him. Is that all? He asked, his voice betraying nothing. Bartholomew nodded curtly. The Reynolds dinner is tomorrow night. I've already accepted on your behalf. Alexander glanced at his watch. 6:45 p.m. He was supposed to meet Emma at 7 mind. Good evening, Father. As the elevator descended, Alexander loosened his tie, feeling as though it had been strangling him throughout the confrontation. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Still on for tonight? Made homemade pasta. He stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the screen. The sensible choice was clear. Cancel with Emma, attend the Reynolds dinner, secure his position. It was what the Alexander of 2 weeks ago would have done without hesitation. But that Alexander hadn't known what it felt like to laugh on a Ferris wheel, or eat hot dogs on a boardwalk, or see New York through the eyes of someone who found wonder in its everyday magic. At precisely 7:00 p.m., Emma's doorbell rang. She checked. Her reflection one last time. Casual in jeans and a soft blue sweater, her curls somewhat tamed, minimal makeup. This was the 4th time she'd seen Alexander in 2 weeks, and each meeting left her more confused about where this unlikely relationship was heading. She opened the door to find Alexander still in his business suit, looking slightly harried. Sorry I'm late. Emma checked her watch. You're exactly on time, actually. Yes, but I wanted to be early to help with dinner. He held up a bottle of wine. Peace offering? Emma accepted it, noting the label with raised eyebrows. This probably costs more than my grocery budget for the month. It's just fermented. Grapes, he said, echoing her earlier words about the subway. May I come in? Emma stepped aside, suddenly self-conscious about her small apartment. It was neat but modest. Second-hand furniture, walls lined with bookshelves, the kitchen barely large enough for 2 people. Alexander surveyed the space with genuine interest. It's very you. Is that a compliment or an insult? Emma asked, uncorking the wine. Definitely a compliment. He moved to a shelf, examining the framed photos. Your sister? Olivia, yes. Emma handed him a glass. She's the pretty one. I disagree, Alexander said quietly, his eyes meeting hers. Emma busied herself with dinner preparations to hide her blush. How was your day of billionairing? Alexander hesitated, swirling the wine in his glass. Complicated. Hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, secret handshakes of the ultra-wealthy? She teased. Family expectations, he corrected, his tone making it clear this wasn't a joking matter. Emma paused her chopping. Do you want to talk about it? Alexander shook his head. Not particularly. I'd rather hear about your day. Well, I had a student bring me a poem that was clearly written by an AI, and when I called him on it, he tried to convince me that he's just naturally that eloquent. The tension in Alexander's shoulders eased slightly as she continued her story, drawing him into her world of teaching and small everyday triumphs. He helped her finish preparing dinner, revealing unexpected competence in the kitchen. Where? Did you learn to make pasta sauce? Emma asked, impressed. Our chef in Florence. I spent summers there as a teenager. Seeing her expression, he added, I know how that sounds. No, it's... Emma searched for words. It's just different. My summer job was scooping ice cream at the boardwalk. They settled at her small dining table, knees occasionally brushing in the limited space. The homemade pasta was delicious, the wine perfect, and for a while, they simply enjoyed each other's company, the earlier tension in Alexander seemingly forgotten. Until Emma's phone rang. Sorry, it's my sister. I should take this. She stepped into the bedroom, closing the door partially. Alexander couldn't help overhearing fragments. How much this time? No, I can make it work. Don't worry about it, Liv. When Emma returned, her smile was forced. Sorry about that. Everything okay? Fine, she said too quickly. Just sister stuff. Alexander set down his fork. Emma, Her phone rang again. With an apologetic glance, she answered. Mom? What's wrong? Her face paled. I'll be right there. She hung up, hands shaking slightly. I have to go. My mother's had a fall at her care facility. Nothing broken, they think, but she's asking for me. I'll take you, Alexander said immediately, already standing. You don't have to. I want to. His tone left no room for argument. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Sunset Pines Assisted Living. Alexander waited in the lobby while Emma visited her mother, using the time to make several phone calls. When Emma emerged an hour later, she looked exhausted. She's okay, she reported. More scared than hurt. They're keeping her overnight for observation. I'm glad, Alexander said sincerely. Is there anything I can do? Emma shook her head, then hesitated. Actually, there is. The administrative office is giving me trouble about the bill. I'm late on last month's payment, and they're threatening to transfer her to a state facility. The words clearly cost her pride to admit. Alexander nodded. Show me where the office is. Alexander, no. I wasn't asking you to. I know you weren't. He took her hand. But let me help. Please. Something in his expression made argument impossible. Emma led him to a small office where a tired-looking administrator was preparing to leave. Ms. Sinclair, I've already explained, she began, then stopped abruptly upon seeing Alexander. Ms. Alexander prompted. Jenkins, the woman supplied, suddenly attentive. Ms. Jenkins, I understand there's an issue with Elaine Sinclair's account? Yes, we're 2 months behind on payments, and our policy clearly states. I'd like to settle the account, Alexander interrupted smoothly, and prepay for the next year. Emma gasped beside him. Alexander, no, that's too much. He squeezed her hand gently. Would you mind giving us a moment, Emma? Reluctantly, she stepped outside, watching through the glass as Alexander spoke with Ms. Jenkins, who was now smiling and nodding enthusiastically. When he emerged, Alexander's expression was unreadable. "It's taken care of." "I can't accept that," Emma said firmly. "It's tens of thousands of dollars. Consider it a loan, then, that I could never repay." "Emma," he placed his hands on her shoulders, "money is the one thing I have in abundance. Let me use it for something that matters." The sincerity in his eyes was her undoing. Emma felt tears threatening. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll have dinner with me tomorrow night, at my place. I want to cook for you this time." Emma wiped her eyes, laughing softly. "Your place? You mean the penthouse?" "It's just an apartment with a better view," he said with a small smile. "With a private elevator and probably a helicopter pad," she teased, trying to lighten the moment. "No helicopter pad. That's on the roof." As they walked back to his car, Emma's phone chimed with a text. She read it and frowned. "My sister," she explained. "Mom's insurance is claiming they won't cover tonight's stay because of some technicality." Alexander took out his phone. "What insurance company?" "Metropolitan Health. Why?" He made a brief call. "This is Alexander Harrington. I need to speak with your CEO, Richard Tanner." "Yes, I'll hold." A pause. "Richard, I need a favor." Emma watched in astonishment as Alexander calmly explained the situation and requested an immediate resolution. Within minutes, the issue was settled. "He's an old college friend," Alexander explained as he hung up. "Sometimes these connections are useful." "That's terrifying, actually. How much power you have." "Only if it's misused," he countered. "Is helping your mother misusing it?" Emma had no answer for that. As they drove back to her apartment in comfortable silence, she found herself wondering again where this relationship could possibly go. Their worlds weren't just different. They were entirely separate universes with occasional points of intersection. At her door, Emma turned to him. "Thank you for everything tonight." "No need to thank me." Alexander stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you." Her heart skipped. "Yes?" He seemed to be struggling with himself. "My father—" Emma's phone rang again. She grimaced. "It's the care facility. I should—" "Of course." Alexander stepped back. "Tomorrow, 8 o'clock?" Emma nodded, disappointed at the interrupted moment. "I'll be there." After she disappeared inside, Alexander stood motionless for a long moment, then pulled out his phone and dialed. "Father," he said evenly, "I won't be attending the Reynolds dinner tomorrow, and if you ever investigate someone I care about again, I'll step down as CEO myself. Good night." He hung up before his father could respond, feeling lighter than he had in years. For the first time in his life, Alexander Harrington was choosing his own path, and it was leading straight to a red-haired waitress with a quick wit and a kind heart. What he didn't know was that his father had already set in motion a plan to protect the Harrington name, one that would test Emma's feelings for Alexander in ways neither of them could imagine. Emma stared at the New York Times business section, her coffee growing cold beside her. The headline seemed to mock her. Harrington heir engaged to banking heiress. Below it, a photo of Alexander and a gorgeous blonde woman, Caroline Reynolds according to the caption, smiling at some gala event. "No," Emma whispered, scanning the article frantically. It described the long-anticipated union of two financial dynasties, mentioning that the engagement had been recently finalized after years of family negotiations. Her phone, which had been silent for 3 days since Alexander had abruptly canceled their dinner with a cryptic text about unavoidable business, remained stubbornly quiet. Olivia squeezed her shoulder. I'm so sorry, Em. It doesn't make sense, Emma said, her voice hollow. The night before he canceled, he stood up to his father about us. He helped Mom. He was going to cook me dinner. Men like that live in a different world, Olivia said gently. Maybe he got caught up in the moment with you, but reality caught up. Emma's phone finally buzzed, with a news alert about Harrington Enterprises' stock rising on the engagement announcement. She turned it off. I need to get to work, she said flatly, gathering her things. The breakfast rush starts in 20 minutes. Emma, I'm fine. She forced a smile. It was fun while it lasted, like Cinderella, except I knew midnight was coming. The morning brew was mercifully busy, keeping Emma's hands occupied even, as her mind replayed every moment with Alexander, searching for signs she'd missed. Had it all been a game to him? A brief adventure with a commoner before returning to his designated path? Table 3 needs a refill. Her co-worker Lisa nudged her, then lowered her voice. And tall, dark, and terrifying at the counter has been asking for you specifically. Emma turned to see an imposing silver-haired man in an impeccable suit sitting at the counter, scanning the cafe with evident distaste. She recognized him immediately from news photos, Bartholomew Harrington. Her heart pounding, Emma approached him. What can I get you, sir? Cold blue eyes, so like Alexander's in color, yet utterly different in expression, assessed her. Emma Sinclair. Finally. We're out of that, she replied coolly. But the vanilla latte is popular. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile. I see why he found you amusing. Please sit. I'm working. I own the building this establishment leases, he said matter-of-factly. I'm sure your manager won't object. As if on cue, her manager appeared. Take your break now, Emma. Reluctantly, Emma slid onto the adjacent stool, keeping her apron on like armor. I'll be direct, Ms. Sinclair, Bartholomew said. My son seems to have developed an infatuation with you. A distraction he can ill afford with the merger negotiations at a critical stage. According to the Times, those negotiations now include a wedding, Emma said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Indeed, the Reynolds-Harrington merger has been planned for years. Caroline is perfect for Alexander, educated at the right schools, connected to the right families, understands the responsibilities of our position. Why are you here, Mr. Harrington? To gloat? He reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope. To thank you for your discretion during this delicate time. Emma stared at the envelope. You're trying to pay me off? I'm compensating you for any inconvenience. I don't want your money. She stood. And I didn't need the Times to tell me it's over. Alexander made that clear when he disappeared. Bartholomew looked genuinely surprised. He hasn't contacted you? A text-canceling dinner. That's it. Emma's throat tightened. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have customers. My son can be misguided, but he's not cruel, Bartholomew said, almost to himself. Interesting. Before Emma could respond, the cafe door banged open, and Alexander himself strode in, looking haggard and furious. He stopped abruptly at the sight of them together. Father. His voice was dangerously quiet. What are you doing here? Having coffee? Bartholomew replied smoothly, rising. Quaint place. Alexander's gaze moved to Emma, something like desperation in his eyes. Emma? Whatever he told you. Congratulations on your engagement, she cut him off, hating how her voice trembled. Your fiancé is beautiful. Confusion crossed his face. What? I'm not. It's in the Times, Alexander, she said, pulling the folded paper from her apron pocket. You could have just told me. He snatched the paper, his expression darkening as he read. This is a lie. I'm not engaged to Caroline Reynolds or anyone else." He turned to his father. "What did you do?" "What was necessary," Bartholomew said, calmly. "The Reynolds merger can proceed without a marriage," Alexander snapped. "This ends now." He pulled out his phone, dialing rapidly. "James, I need an immediate retraction in the Times. Yes, the engagement story. It's fabricated. I don't care how, just fix it." Emma watched this exchange, confusion and hope warring within her. "You're not engaged?" "No," Alexander said firmly, reaching for her hand. "I was in Tokyo, finalizing the renewable energy partnership. My father took my phone when I was sleeping on the flight back." He glared at Bartholomew. "Apparently to prevent me from contacting you while he implemented his plan." "The board votes tomorrow," Bartholomew said, unapologetic. "Your focus has been compromised. I did what was necessary for the company's future." "I'm sorry, Father," Alexander said, his tone softening. "But I've changed the company's future already. The Asian partnerships are signed. The Kazakhstan deal is dead. And tomorrow, I'm recommending to the board that you step into an advisory role rather than remain as chairman." Bartholomew's face paled. "You wouldn't dare." "I already have. The votes are secured." Alexander's expression was resolute. "I respect everything you've built, but your methods belong to the past. It's time for Harrington Enterprises to move forward." The older man stared at his son for a long moment, seeing something new in him. Without another word, he picked up his briefcase and left, his rigid posture betraying his shock. In the awkward silence that followed, Alexander turned to Emma. "I'm so sorry. I tried calling as soon as I realized what happened, but my father had blocked your number from my phone." Emma wasn't ready to forgive so easily. "You could have come here sooner." "I landed 3 hours ago. I went straight to the office to handle the board situation, then came here as soon as I read the paper." His eyes pleaded with her. "Emma, these past days without you, I realized something." "That you don't want to be engaged to Caroline Reynolds?" she suggested dryly. "That I don't want a life that doesn't have you in it." The simple declaration hung between them. "I've spent my entire existence following a predetermined path. Meeting you showed me there's another way to live. With spontaneity, with joy, with genuine connection." Emma's heart raced, but her practical nature asserted itself. "Alexander, our worlds are completely different. Your father won't be the only obstacle." "I know." He took both her hands in his. "But I've spent 2 weeks experiencing your world, and it's been the happiest I've ever been. Maybe it's time you experienced mine. Not to change you, but to show you that we can build something that belongs to neither world exclusively, but to us." "That sounds nice in theory, but—" "I love you, Emma Sinclair," he interrupted, the words clearly surprising even him. "I didn't come here to say that. I came to apologize and explain and beg for another chance. But it's true. I love your compassion, and your wit, and your complete disregard for my bank account. I love how you see wonder in things I've always taken for granted. I love that you returned my wallet when you could have kept it." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I only found your wallet because I was too exhausted to move from that bench." "Best exhaustion of your life," he said with a tentative smile. "You planted that wallet," she reminded him. "You saw me before I saw you." Alexander nodded. "I noticed you weeks earlier, reading to children at the park. You were laughing, and I thought you had the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. I kept finding excuses to walk through the park, hoping to see you again." "So you dropped a wallet with $3,000 in front of a starving teacher?" Emma shook her head. "Not your most brilliant strategy." "It worked, didn't it?" His smile widened. "I got to know the real you, not someone impressed by my name or wealth. If you'd kept the money, I'd have known you weren't who I thought you were." Emma considered this. That's either the most romantic or most manipulative thing I've ever heard. Maybe a bit of both, he admitted. I'm learning as I go. The cafe had grown quiet, customers openly watching their exchange. Emma's manager made a shooing motion toward the door. I think I just got fired. Emma sighed. Actually, I bought the cafe this morning, Alexander said sheepishly. You can't be fired unless you fire yourself. Emma's jaw dropped. You what? Consider it an investment in excellent coffee, he said innocently. And perhaps a writer's retreat. I heard the owner was looking to sell anyway, and I thought, you mentioned wanting more time for your novel. Alexander, you can't just buy businesses because of me. Why not? People buy flowers or chocolates. Despite herself, Emma laughed. You're impossible. I'm adaptable, he corrected her. Emma, I don't know exactly how we make this work long term, but I know I want to figure it out with you. No, more disappearing, no more secrets. Just us, finding our way together. What do you say? Emma looked at this man who had upended her life in less than 3 weeks. This complex, evolving person who had chosen her over dynasties and expectations. Oh, I think, she said slowly, that I'm going to need to see this penthouse kitchen you've been bragging about. For research purposes. Alexander's face lit up with genuine joy. Does that mean? It means I'm not giving up on us yet, Emma clarified. And I might love you too, but I'm still the same person with the same life and values. I wouldn't want you any other way. He leaned forward, finally claiming the kiss that had been interrupted on the wonder wheel. It was worth the wait, tender yet passionate, a promise of possibilities. When they separated, Emma smiled. You know, most people just use a dating app. I prefer the lost wallet method. Much more effective. 100% success rate so far, she agreed, taking his hand as they walked out into the sunshine together. 1 year later, Emma set her pen down, the final page of her manuscript, complete. Through the window of her small study in the penthouse, she could see the park where it had all begun, where a bored billionaire had dropped his wallet near an exhausted waitress. Her novel, under contract with a major publisher, told a different story, but the core remained the same. Sometimes the most valuable things we find aren't the ones we were looking for. The door opened, and Alexander entered, loosening his tie. He'd kept his position as CEO, but had transformed the company, focusing on sustainable energy and ethical practices. His father, surprisingly, had become his strongest advocate once he accepted the inevitable. Finished? Alexander asked, noticing the manuscript. Emma nodded. Just in time for our anniversary. He smiled, pulling her into his arms. 1 year since you found my wallet. 1 year since you planted it, you mean? She corrected, kissing him softly. Best loss I ever experienced, he murmured against her lips. Outside, Central Park teemed with life. Joggers and dog walkers, tourists and locals, the endless rhythm of New York continuing around them. Just as it had that autumn day, when a wallet not so accidentally left on a bench had set in motion a story neither of them could have written alone. Emma's old apartment was now occupied by her sister Olivia. Her mother's care was fully secured, and the community center where she still taught part-time had mysteriously received a major endowment for arts education. Some compromises had been harder than others, the charity galas, the business dinners, the occasional tabloid speculation. But they'd found their balance, creating a life that honored both worlds while building something entirely new. What should we do to celebrate? Alexander asked, twirling a strand of her auburn hair around his finger. Emma pretended to consider. I was thinking hot dogs on the boardwalk, followed by a subway ride. His laughter, no longer rare, filled the room. Perfect. As long as we're together, I'm home. And in that moment, Both of them, the billionaire, who had found his heart, and the waitress who had found so much more than a wallet, knew it was true.